I am starting. Yes. So, hello again, those who are here and those who are watching the recording. And we are starting with today's, well, hopefully a short lecture. You know how it goes. Sometimes you can finish quicker, and sometimes there are things to talk about. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes with the questions. Okay. But for now, let's start and we'll see how it goes. So Lithuanian Christmas, and I wasn't going to give this lecture, and some of you know this, that the last lecture I was planning to do was, well, the the last Zoom session. But then I thought, okay, so people were really excited about talking about mythology and the Christmas traditions, Christmas Eve traditions and dishes, and well, I thought it would be a nice opportunity to actually talk about it more before Christmas, some kind of a little celebratory meeting. So that's what we are going to do. So, of course, some of the information will be known to those who, well, of course, if you read about it on your own or if you participated in previous sessions about the customs of the year or the mythology lecture, from the last course, but some of the information is new. I haven't talked about it yet, so here we go. So, of course, we'll need to start from the same thing that we talked about quite a lot of times. It's the circle of the year, because I think it's an inherent part of Lithuanian worldview, knowing that everything kind of dies down and then rises again. So it's like a circle. It's like a circle chart, however we want to call it, but everything needs to calm down and symbolically be buried and then rise again, be born again. And I will not talk anymore about the traditions of the All Souls Day, but just so we remember that the old traditions of these commemorative days for our ancestors and the traditions of Christmas Eve were really similar, because the main point was to feed the souls of your ancestors. And in the beginning, it used to happen in different ways, but later, with Christianity, a lot of things changed. People weren't allowed to just do it in the forests or in cemeteries, so they needed to go home. And that's how the tradition kind of altered. And now we know that we gather together for a dinner, but it used to be kind of a little bit different. Another thing that we must remember or might remember is that a very important part of Lithuanian culture is straw gardens. And I'm talking about them again because if you remember, um, one of the beliefs was that ancestral souls can visit the house through a straw garden, which is important for this Christmas period, and basically the period after the harvest until Christmas, until the beginning of the new year. Well, now we consider it the new year. In ancient traditions all around the world, it was a different time for New Year, but now we have what we have. Another interesting thing is that um, I happened to read about the old tradition of hanging straw or wooden birds. I think at the top of the table, I mean above the table, because it was considered that the souls can also go into this world through these figures of birds. And it's interesting because they're, well, kind of some cultures that consider birds kind of the messengers between this world and the beyond. And if we need to talk about the beginning of Christmas period, although as I said, we could consider the whole period after the harvest, connecting to the rituals of commemorating the dead. But after Christianity, the tradition kind of intertwined, and now we know that the Advent period starts on the day of Saint Andrew. But what's interesting is that although there was this Christian tradition, we know this the day of Saint Andrew, but people actually combined the Christian customs and the old customs, and started doing fortune telling on Christmas Andrew on Saint Andrew's Day. Sorry, I misspoke. Yeah. So although we kind of know that it's blasphemous, probably to do this, but this was how the Christian culture and the old Lithuanian culture, it got together. And starting from St. Andrew's Day, they started to, do all these little games and fortune telling. And I just picked a few that used to be done on St. Andrew's Day, so 30th of November. So one quite interesting one I thought was planting hemp seeds. So girls would go around the house, like outside, and also then would go into the house after doing that, not looking back, and they would also go around the bed. And after doing this, they would hope to dream the one who'll help her to collect the harvest of hemp. Another interesting one would be putting water container with a bridge, some kind of bridge, under the bed and hoping to dream the one who is going to marry her. Although this one, I think, used to be done also on Christmas Eve. And for example, putting a stolen, very important, to steal it from your neighbors, a stolen cherry branch into water and see if it blooms till Christmas. If it does, then that means that there might be a wedding in the future. Well, however, let's continue with Advent, and later we'll come back to these fortune-telling games because I know that there were some people who were interested in that. I'll also actually post today a list. I promise to do that too. I'll post a list of those fortune-telling games, but I'll comment some of them in this lecture. But now let's talk about Advent. So, well, it is the time of peace, calm, and forgiveness. And although now we connect this time with Christianity, I think it used to be this time of calm because, well, again, remembrance of ancestors, of the souls. And this period wasn't loud or funny. It was kind of peaceful. Although, they say they didn't sing typical songs, they didn't go and have fun, but they would still gather together in the evenings and they would sing some songs and they would play some games. So basically, maybe they were a little bit different. They would talk about different topics, those songs, but they were still there. Just they were different, and they are actually really beautiful. If you have listened to any traditional songs of this period, they are, well, some of them are really, I must say, breathtaking. They have different sound than the typical Lithuanian songs. And what else? So what people would do during this time. So you wouldn't typically get married in December or whatever. So you do simple housework like spinning, plucking feathers, fixing harnesses, etc., etc. Simple work. Some jobs for women and some jobs for men. Also, there were some work that was forbidden during this time, especially on Christmas Eve, but also in some areas, also on the evenings of Advent. You couldn't do certain things. For example, I think you wouldn't make pillows. You can pluck the feathers, but not make the pillows because of the superstitions relating, of people believe that their actions would be repeated. So if they do, for example, if they try to fix old blankets. Then their cattle might be born with the fur that has, how should we say that, that has marks, different like black marks, etc. So it will not be nice for. So things like that. Also, those songs I have mentioned, they have these specific words that are used, and many of them actually don't have a clear meaning. There are attempts to explain uh, what could they mean, but we haven't reached a conclusion, I think, yet. And these words that you see on the screen actually show us very clearly that this is a Christmas period song, specifically a Christmas period song. Also, it was important to look at nature throughout the whole Advent period, but also on Christmas, and guess the weather and guess the harvest based on that. Also, making protections against evil forces was one of the main things throughout this time, because it was believed that this period of time was still the period of time when the veil gets thin, and although your ancestral souls can visit you, there are also evil forces, and they can do harm. So we need to use rituals and prayers to protect ourselves. If we talk about this newer tradition that is very popular now all around the world, um, the Advent wreath, so it's actually quite new, especially in Lithuania. And we know this typical form now, uh, the let's say Christian form with 3 purple candles and 1 pink, and sometimes the 5th is white for Christmas Eve. But actually, um, it is thought that the first Christmas wreaths were started being made in Germany in maybe 16th century, although the very first description that we know of comes from 19th century. There was this pastor who uh, took care of orphans and the children. He would teach them and help them, and the children kept asking, how many days till Christmas, and he decided to make a wreath. And well, supposedly he put 4 white candles and 24 red ones. So red ones, the smaller ones for each day, and the white ones for each week. And after some time, Catholics took over. Well, Lutherans passed down the tradition to Catholics, let's say like that. And later, in the end of 19th century, in the beginning of 20th century, this tradition came to Lithuania through Lithuania Minor, so through Lutherans mostly. But again, Catholic people adopted it. And although now we probably couldn't say it's a religious thing anymore, and we would say probably that people around the world make Christmas wreaths, even if they are not religious. They might just like to have the symbol of counting the time until Christmas. But this is where it comes from. So it's not that old of a tradition. And of course, now we make them in different forms. Now, this time was actually considered quite spooky, where there's darkness and less light than usual. And people thought it was important to bring back the sun, because based on the old beliefs, it was thought that the sun is kind of in a supposed prison, something like that, figuratively speaking, but that people need to help the sun to come back, to the sun to reappear. And after, they saw that, okay, there is more sun. That means the days are starting to get longer. So, the old beliefs would say that people helped with their rituals, but basically they saw that the days are starting to get longer, and they would have a celebration. So even before Christianity, around this time, people would celebrate. That's why we have so many old traditions, because they were really there, and now we kind of connected all that to Christmas Eve. And actually, today is winter solstice, and we call it the celebration of the ninth antlered deer. And there are many myths related to nine antlered deer. Researchers think that maybe this belief in this mythological creature comes from the old deer hunter communities where they would follow the deers, and the deer would be considered the symbol of prosperity, of uh, wellness, because it was a source of food, firstly. But also, uh, the symbol of the deer became a symbol of the sun, actually. And there are different mentions in songs even about how the nine antler deer is bringing the sun on its antlers, or even also the moon and the stars and other um, planets, and planets from in the sky. And it was kind of symbolic, at least to some people, of Christmas, actually, the nine antler deer. And there are different beliefs about it, but they say that that the nine antler deer starts running on the nine antler deer celebration and comes back on Christmas, things like that. mm, so yes. And now, of course, we'd say that Christmas Eve, or Kūčios in Lithuanian, is this point of time, when we we do some of the old traditions, and not a lot of people celebrate winter solstice as a separate celebration. So, if we think about pre-Christian traditions, we should also mention that there were offerings being made, and by pre-Christian, I mean that even after Christianity came, but there were still some old of the traditions left. So we should also mention these old rituals and offerings of a rooster and a hen, well, bread and bear, maybe a simpler type of offering, but these animal sacrifices that used to happen. But we'll talk more now about the time when we know more about those old traditions and beliefs. So this is the time where Christianity and old tradition kind of met. So for Christmas Eve, it was considered important to finish all work. Well, typically people say that you need to pay back all your debt and pay back all your loans and, well, everything, and you need to finish all work. Also, it was believed that Christmas Eve night was well, miraculous, and animals would start talking. Although, it's interesting because there are these mentions, and well, that's what people believe, that it is not a good luck to hear the animals talking. It might bring you really bad luck. But also, there are these games for future telling that you need to go outside in the middle of the night. So I'm not sure about that. But you might see uh, or hear about this, that you shouldn't hear animals speaking. You shouldn't also lend anything on Christmas Eve. Especially, it's interesting, they say, especially a round object, because it will also bring you bad luck. You will give away your prosperity. And I said that some of the work was forbidden, but especially on Christmas Eve, you shouldn't chop wood. And there are these descriptions, very interesting ones, where they say that in some areas they believe that if they go to the forest to chop wood, there would be an old woman who would start crying, and she would hide somewhere in the forest, and she would not stop crying until they are chopping wood. And also, they believe that if the wood is chopped on Christmas Eve, then the wood for your fireplace would be bad and would be really and would burn loudly, etc., etc. Or if you build a house from this wood, then it might catch on fire, or different beliefs. And what else? Maybe I'll remember later. But there shouldn't be chopping wood. Also, as I said, no filling the pillows. You can, plug the feathers on in the Advent period, but you shouldn't make pillows on Christmas Eve. Also, no noisy work. So basically, you don't do anything that causes big noise, like chopping wood. Yes, any other work that is noisy shouldn't be done on Christmas Eve. Also, there was this ritual washing. So at first, girls would help wash the men, the upper part of the body, and then they would wash themselves and the children. And it was believed that on Christmas Eve, the water, well, it is said that many traditions of Christmas Eve, they are related to the old beliefs about water and the old cults related to water. So they believe that if you do this ritual washing, then you'll be really healthy next year and it will help you be protected. So, yeah. Also, very important belief that you probably know of is that ancestral souls can visit the table. So it is important to leave them something. And in some places, they say they would just leave the table that they ate at just untouched, and they would just leave it for the souls. In some other regions, they say that they would collect everything, they would clean the table, and they would put something new, so that it's a clean table. In other locations, they say that they would put some meat dishes because, well, typically you should eat food that is uh, not made of meat and dairy. But there are different mentions, and there are some locations where they say that they especially ate meat dishes on Christmas Eve. Also, one of the, well, interesting and important ones is inviting lonely people. So it was considered good luck to invite a lonely person to come and eat a Christmas Eve dinner together. And the dinner should start with the evening star appearing in the sky, well, traditionally. And how do you put the table together? So you would use a white tablecloth, and traditionally you would put straw under the tablecloth. And later you can do some feature telling with it, but basically, the straw. Now it is explained connecting to Christianity and the birth of Jesus Christ, but probably not because it's an old tradition and it is connected to accepting the ancestral souls to visit, and they need a place to lay down because they would even put straw under the table, not even under the tablecloth. Well, that's what is thought. It is 12 dishes. It is thought that there used to be 13 because there used to be 13 months, but now we have 12. And in 20th century, there are mentions where people would prepare only 3, 5, or 7 dishes. And sometimes people take this thing quite seriously. And if it's a big family, it's fine. But they prepare like 5 fish dishes and then a lot of salad. And it's not 12 dishes then, but maybe 24. But typically, if it's not a big family, the traditional way of doing Christmas Eve dinner is just putting simple products on your table. How we do it in our family is if we have picked some mushrooms that year, then we prepare mushrooms. We have a dish of herring because traditionally, well, it was the cheapest fish and easily accessible in winter. Herring, pickled herring. And then we would have like maybe several types of salads, including fermented cabbage and maybe beetroot salad. And then you would have all these other. So basically, you count everything that you put on the table. Nuts, a separate dish. Apples, a separate dish. Honey, a separate dish. And then you need to try everything. That's how we do it. And well, now it is not prepared that much, but this is the traditional dish that is called kucha. And this is where the name for kuchos comes from. And I just saw that some kind of version of this dish was prepared in several uh, neighboring nations because they have similar name. But if we read about how it was prepared in different regions, in some locations, this name would be used for some bread dishes. But again, it's connected to grains. But now, as we know it, the traditional kucha is grains, and they can be either boiled or soaked for a few days, and then you maybe put some honey and some poppy seeds, and and the traditional one would be to have like 5 types of grains. But now, well, people typically don't use 5 types of grains, just one, and then they do this dish. But it is considered that this dish was supposed to feed the ancestral souls specifically. And of course, we need to talk about some other traditional dishes. So it would be kuchukai. Kuchukai, we would say, we can say Christmas biscuits, but it's not entirely true. So basically, kuchukai are these biscuits that you need to bake not using eggs and milk traditionally. Now, if you buy it in a supermarket, they put everything. But traditionally, there shouldn't be any milk and eggs. So you use yeast, you use flour and water, and then you can add sugar or salt and poppy seeds. And of course, now we have gluten-free versions, etc., etc. But still, for example, I don't put eggs and milk because that's how it should go based on the tradition. And again, this dish could be called several names. You might have heard from your parents or grandparents, slirkai or preskuchi, but the typical, the most known name is kuchukai. And again, I think that there were different forms of this dish. And poppy seeds are actually really used on Christmas Eve, but this is how they look like. And well, they are quite easy to make. Another dish from poppy seeds would be aguonpinis, which is poppy seed milk. So you need to mash the poppy seeds and you need to add some water and you get this white milk. And well, I really don't like it, honestly. But you need to, well, you can put your kuchukai into it and eat it like cereal almost. So you might like to try it. I will I will try to do it again. Maybe I had bad poppy seeds. I don't know. But and then we have kisielius, which is a specific drink. The traditional kisielius would be made of oats. So it would be this really thick drink. And again, one of the dishes that was used to feed um, the ancestral souls. But now we also have, well, the most popular one is cranberry kisielius. And this thick. And now I think it is prepared. Well, there are these mixes that you can buy, but they're kind of artificial. And if you want to make a homemade kisielius, then you'd use cranberry and you'd use starch. But the traditional one that is not prepared a lot anymore would be oat kisielius. And we'll talk a little bit later. I have the slide here with some pictures about fortune telling games. So you can see one with beeswax and then another with kuchuke. So I'll mention that. But also, well, now an important part of Christmas Eve dinner would be sharing. I'm thinking how it is called. This comes from Christian tradition, and I forgot the word now. But in Lithuania, we call it kalėdaitis, and which would be directly translated as, well, Christmas biscuit maybe. But it comes from the church, and you share it with your family. And typically, what should be done is that each person around the table gets one, and then they need to take a piece and share it. You need to share with all people around you, and you have these small pieces, and then you need to eat it before Christmas Eve dinner. Although in small families, I think that sometimes it is done just in a simple way, that you just share it, just the one. Although priests typically, you need to go to the church and you give a donation and they give you this. And priests, they give this kalėdaitis for each person in the family. They say how many people in the family, you say, and you receive them. Just included a few greeting phrases in case you might want to use them. Su šventomis kalėdomis, su kalėdomis, linksmų kalėdų. Basically, all of them mean Happy Christmas. It's just different forms in Lithuanian that are not quite translatable, because su kalėdomis would be directly translated as with Christmas. So you cannot say that in English, but it means Merry Christmas. Su šventomis kalėdomis, we could say Merry Holy Christmas, because in Lithuania we kind of use this Holy Christmas notion. And you might see in old postcards, for example, that it says this shortened shv. It's a letter sh and v, and then you have the name of the holiday, which means, well, holy. And now, let's come back to fortune telling, future telling games. And I know that some people are really excited to try some. So let's try and talk about this. So, one of the main ones, if you do it traditionally with a straw under the tablecloth, then you take a straw from under it and you see if it's a long or a short one. And there are several explanations, and I think in every family they might be different. But if you take a long one, it can either mean good harvest or long life. If it's a short one, then it could be bad harvest or short life. So of course, if you take the short one, then you think, okay, it's better to have bad harvest, But different explanations. That's how we do it, We take something and then we think of the best way possible. If there are many stars in the sky of Christmas Eve, that means that there is going to be good harvest. A lot of things that will grow. Also, they would look at wind and rain. If it was windy and from one side, it would mean one thing. It's good for some types of plants. If it's from another side, it's good for another type of plants. If it's raining, another type of plants. So for each, there would be signs. Also, one of the, well, quite traditional types of fortune telling would be counting pieces of wood. So you go to the wood house and you take some wood, and then you come back to the house and you count how many have you taken. Or fence planks also. So you go outside and there is a wooden fence and you kind of try to hug it, or how should I say it? And then you need to count how many planks between your hands. And if it's an odd number, then you'll not get married. If it's an even number, you'll get married, basically. Also, young girls who want to get married would listen from where the dogs are barking at night. And, well, the side from which the dogs are barking means from there will come the people bringing the groom. Also, there are quite interesting ones, almost spooky. So one of them would be putting a mirror, a candle, and a bowl of water on millstones. Can imagine to see the future spouse. So you would hope to see your future spouse. Well, I think in the mirror because that's the usual practice. It has to do something with a mirror. For the same purpose, in some locations they would look into the well. So you go to the well and you look down and you are hoping to see your future spouse. Also, you'd look from where the wind blows, and that could also mean that your groom, because typically it would be done by girls, so your groom will come from that side where the wind is blowing. Also, there are quite a lot of those games related to pillows, you'll see. So one of them would be putting a hazelnut under the pillow, and then you would need to take it with you everywhere for the whole year. It would bring you good luck, and anyone could do it. Also, you can take some kuchukai or nuts from, a container and a bowl where they are put. And if you take an odd number, then no marriage or maybe bad luck. If it's an even number, then you're getting married or good luck. And now, again, the pillow. So if a girl wants to see her future spouse, she could brush her hair. And I think I have read before, and I used to try and do that when I was a child, well, a teenager maybe. Because it was fun to do it, Mom would say, let's do some future telling, fortune telling games. And so then I would read somewhere online, because it was easier that way. And the thing is that the hairbrush needs to be clean before. So there shouldn't be hair of other people on that brush. Maybe you borrowed it to someone. So you need to either have a new one or really clean it, and then you brush your hair. In one sources, they say you should have your hair wet. In other sources, just you brush your hair and put it under the pillow. Or you put a mirror under the pillow, and you'd hope to see your future spouse in a dream that night. Also, I think I have mentioned that one, and some people found it hilarious. But actually, that's what I used to do. So you borrow a wedding ring from your family member who is married. You take your hair, and you need to put that ring on that hair, so it kind of it swings. And then you take a water glass. So you need to have like a half a glass or a little bit more of water. And then you hold that ring above the water, and you need to count how many times will the ring clink to the side of the glass. So in my version that I used to do, it tells your age of when you're getting married, but in other versions, it says that after how many years you'll get married. So, well, I don't know. It didn't work with the age thing, the answer that I used to get. So maybe it will work with how many years from that time when I used to do it. I don't know. But it's interesting. Also, there are many traditions with fortune telling that include writing things on pieces of paper. So one would be you write 10 wishes. Well, you have 10 papers, you leave 3 empty, and you write your wishes. You put them under your pillow again, and then you wake up in the morning and take 3 from under your pillow, and then you see which of the wishes will happen will come true soon. Another option would be writing names uh, of candidates to your heart of young men, and you put them and then under the pillow, and then you need to take one again. You need to take one from under the pillow, and you'll see who is your future spouse. Also, an interesting one would be peeling an apple, but you need to try and do it in one piece. so like this long thing, and you throw it through your shoulder or over your shoulder, and then you need to see what is the letter that is formed from this apple peel. And that would be the first letter of the name of your future spouse. So you see that many of those are related somehow to marriage because it was important. And maybe also because they were preparing for these few months that were very good for getting married after Christmas. Also, fortune telling with beeswax was quite popular. So one way would be to use just a candle and let it drop, but also you can just have some hot beeswax in some, maybe metal container, and you just pour it into the water, and you then need to look and see what is the shape. There are different explanations also. If there are drops, then that might mean money, but sometimes you just see and maybe look and see some kind of silhouette or a shape or a symbol, and then you think what it could mean for me. Also, one of the more interesting ones that I had shown to me in one meeting that I didn't used to do is putting things under plates or cups. So in that case, we played with cups, but also I have read about a version with plates. And with plates, there are four plates, and you put four different things under them. And those things could be a key, a candy, well, things like that. If there are cups and a lot of people, you could have more of them, and you would put different things. So what we were offered in this meeting was a small candle. Um, it was also two Christmas biscuits, so kuchukai, and two symbolically means that you'll get married, because it's two. Then there was a pencil, all these different types of things. And then you need to think, how could I explain that? If it's a candy, then the life will be sweet. If it's too kuchuke, then you'll get married. If it's a key, so you could either explain that you stay at home a lot or that you'll find some answers you're looking for. So it's also relative how you consider it. But it's a fun game to do. Uh, and it was considered quite important to try and remember the dreams. So trying and remembering what was the man that you dreamt of, that's one thing. But also there were even these games where you would need to put a glass of water next to your bed, I think. And then you need to go to sleep, and you need to try and remember your dream before looking at the window. And if you remember, that means this dream will come true. Well, I don't know about dreams, but if they are bad, maybe we don't want them to come true. So I don't know. It's interesting. And so we do this still. Many of the people, we still do this, these types of games, but I guess some of them we don't know the old meaning anymore, like what people thought when they starting doing this. But it's interesting. Also, there were these games using house animals or farm animals. So one would be that you'd put a ring, a piece of bread, and the third object I don't remember now, and you would let a hen pick one of those. And if the hen picks the ring, then you'll get married. If the hen picks something else, then it's another thing. And if it picks the bread, then you'll be poor. And I thought it's funny because hen would probably pick bread. So but another version would be to that girls take kuchukas, like a Christmas biscuits. Each of the girls, they put them in line. They need to remember which one belongs to which girl, and then they invite a dog. And the first uh, Christmas biscuit or kuchukas that the dog eats means that the owner of that biscuit is getting married first. So there is really, really different versions of all these games. Quite an interesting one would be putting two needles into a plate with water. If the needles come together, that means there's going to be a wedding. I don't know if you are not bored over this, but I'm already finishing, and I thought you might like to try some of those. And again, I will make a list, but maybe you will, note something from here. One quite popular one is throwing a shoe over your shoulder to the door. So basically, you take a shoe, you throw it, and then you need to see which uh, which direction is the shoe pointing. If it's pointing to the middle of the room, that means you will stay home a lot, or you will not get married. So it goes on several levels. If it's if it's pointing to the door, it would either mean you are leaving home, you are getting married, or maybe, in some households, it could mean that you'll travel a lot. So things like that. And now, this would be done on Christmas Eve. Also, I think now we can see these interpretations that we can also do it on New Year's Eve, etc. But we move to Christmas, Kalėdos. So it's interesting that there are different explanations of the word Kalėdos, and none of them convince me, honestly. Some of them explain this word coming from Slavic languages, and that it means either a wheel or a piece of wood, because there is a tradition we'll talk about in a moment where you need to drag a piece of wood around the village. Another version is that it comes from Latin word calendare, and it's connecting to something that later became a calendar that we know now. So maybe it's related to that. It's like the circle of the year, but I don't know. I'm not convinced, and many people aren't too. Um, and one of the traditions for Christmas would be actually dragging a plank of wood. And then you just drag a plank of wood around the village, and then you burn it later. Kind of symbolized getting rid of problems and bad energy from the year. And it's also known in Latvia. In Latvia, it was done on Christmas Eve. I think in Lithuania, it was mostly done on Christmas. But you should wake up early on Christmas Day, and you would look on the table. If you left the food for the souls, you would start, tidying up, and you would see if the souls visited. Some of the really old traditional meats would include pork and boar meat. Of course, later it changed a little bit, although I think that pork remained quite an important source of food. And of course, you shouldn't work, and you shouldn't go and visit neighbors or anything like go visiting people. You can future tell about the weather and harvest. So again, you look at the weather and you take guesses of how it will be. And if we talk about Christmas trees, then we should talk first about Greece, because they had traditions of decorating, well, not fir trees, but other types of little trees. It is thought that maybe the first Christmas tree was decorated in Riga in 16th century. Also, there are mentions about Germany, and it was popular mostly in Germany for some time, well, quite some time. And traditionally, it would be decorated with nuts, apples, and candles. And the first trees in Lithuania, it is thought, came around 19th, 20th centuries. So it's not clear where was the first uh where was the first Christmas tree. And I'm not sure if the slides jumped, but I also wanted to mention that there was this tradition to decorate a fir tree branch, either on the corner of the table, or just decorate your house with fir branches. It was considered, well, well-meaning and good luck. Also, greetings on Christmas Day were considered kind of miraculous, so they would come true. If someone wishes you something, it would come through. And people asked me about what's the equivalent of Santa Claus. So actually, this Kaleda, so this is the name of this man that they would dress up as, or the old man. It was a figure who would walk around wishing good harvest, basically. And of course, people would offer some food and drinks, etc. Um, well, it is thought that it comes from the old uh, wise men, but maybe this is not an exact word to use. But people who, could see uh, clearly from the old tradition. And then later, it just became kind of a tradition to dress up, to go dressed in costumes. But basically, mm, yeah, I cannot even find the right word for these old. They were not priests in the old tradition, in the Baltic tradition. They were kind of, and not prophets. They were people who knew things and who could help, and maybe who could help and heal. And maybe that comes from there. But basically, later it became kind of an occasion to dress up and go and walk around and wish good things to people. And Kaleda, the old man, the old man Christmas, would dress in these strange clothes that looked like rags, and they would use maybe a towel or something, and maybe a jacket or a vest that would be turned inside out, and they would put something on their back so that they have kind of a hump, you know, and also uh, they would have uh, a beard made of linen. Actually, if you know how the fiber of linen looks like, then you'll know. They would just do that, or maybe if it was an older man, they could have a beard. Um, yeah, let's continue. So now we have the senior Kaleda in Lithuania. He even has actually a Facebook page. And he travels a bit and accepts people to visit. And now you can see that the dressing upward, it's stylized, styled, and changed. But still, the colors, they are kind of uh, not what we know now of as red. No, it's more earth tones. Although I think that this red thing came from the beginning of 20th century with capitalism. Mm. I think it wasn't red in other places too. Uh, Later, with Christianity, peasants took the tradition of visiting each other, and this is called kaledojimas. And actually now, it's interesting because who visits people is priests, although it's again now it's a time of change where priests don't visit that much anymore. In some parishes they do, in other parishes they don't, but they go and basically they collect donations and also they bless the house. So it's really interesting how it came to be, although the old tradition of kaledojimas, it was to visit and wish good luck. And there were Christmas games that could be played too on Christmas Day, very specific ones. And basically, it's difficult to say something very specific about Christmas. And of course, maybe on the second day we could visit other people, neighbors, etc. But although you see that there was this going and wishing well thing, although you'd stay at home. But maybe the main point was for a long time Christmas Eve. All the magic and everything surrounding it. Of course, people would go to the church in the later centuries, and it was important and is important to some people still. And there are many families who became quite secular and they are not so devoted Christians, but they still go to the church on Christmas. It's kind of considered that you need to do it. And nowadays, if we need to compare things, so of course we have different types of food, and cakes and pies are traditionally a part of Christmas Day dishes. And of course, you'd have meat dishes if your family eats meat, or even fish or anything you want. There is no specific thing now. Although on Christmas Eve you try to, again, it's slowly fading because people are like, let's order 12 types of sushi. So maybe it's fun, but it's not traditional. But typically you spend time with your family on Christmas. And before we head into the questions, I just wanted to let you know that there is a giveaway going on, and actually many people put their comments to participate in our group. But I asked to put your comments on the original under the original post on my Facebook page, and I will invite someone to participate in the Genealogy 102 course. So feel free to participate in this. I just thought it would be fun for Christmas. And the course is starting on 4th January, so quite quickly. So if you haven't registered yet, feel free to do so. I will send the link. And also, the next course on heritage will start in March. So you can see different topics, some of the ones that you wanted to talk about, including um, mushroom picking and picking herbs and beekeeping, things like that. So you can see. And if you're interested in that, welcome. And what else is that Lithuanian Genealogy 101, the first level course that many of you participated in is happening also in March. So that's that. And now I think we'll move to questions. So let's hear it. So many superstitions, yes, definitely. I mean, everything reeks of superstition when it comes to this period of time because people thought, okay, this is really, kind of a time where you need to be super careful.
My Lithuanian grandmother had many superstitions. I believe that she got from her mother, who was born in Lithuania.
Mm-hmm.
And we remember that about her, that she had a lot of superstitions. It's part of the culture, I guess, a little bit. And
Yes,
maybe
I think
especially
so.
around marriage and holidays. Yeah.
Yes, yes, definitely. And not only that, some of the superstitions would go around when we talk about childbirth and health of women, many things. We called it a plotkelė. Yes. Well, that's what you call it in dialects, actually. At least in some. Communion wafer. Yes, I think so. Thank you. That's how it is called. And we call it plotkelė too. Yes, of course. So you can ask anything. Either you can, turn on your microphone or ask in the chat, it's fine. And I'll read one before it was something else, but I'll read it. It I just emailed you an image of the World War II alien registration. One man, James Shelley, one alien registration ID, and 3 document IDs associated with different names. I should have emailed last week. Okay, I remember. So I'll look into it, okay? And I will get back to you, hopefully soon. Maybe not today, but I'll try. And I'll use this opportunity to say that if I haven't answered you this month, please don't be angry with me, but maybe remind me that I haven't answered because this month was crazy. Sometimes I take longer to answer some emails, but this month was special. So yeah, you can remind me, okay? And I'll try and do it between the holidays. There's going to be this window of time which is usually calmer. So I'll try to do that. Okay, so then you had a question about Romuva, yes?
Hi, hi. This is Dan. I'm in Florida,
Yes, hello.
and hi, and I'm American born, and my parents were all born in Brooklyn. Were born in
Mm-hmm.
Brooklyn, and my grandparents, all four, were from Lithuania. And so my mother was born here, very American, but she was raised in Lithuania for 10 years, and so brought back a lot of traditions. And she found something that I have to say I agree with. Her family had a lot of the old traditions, and she would say that when the Catholic Church came in, it basically massacred the old traditions. And I never have been to Lithuania, but I used to live in Spain and spent time in Italy. And when I saw these churches in Rome, like a lot of them were pagan temples, and as if they didn't have enough churches already in Rome, they took all these pagan temples and made them Catholic churches. So I'm not really anti-Catholic or anything, but I just feel like as we know, we were the last country Christianized, and so I'm wondering if in when you go to Lithuania, are there ways to study the old ways? Because honestly, I'm planning on going next summer, and I could
Mm-hmm.
care less about another church. Europe is full of them; they're all the same. And so, how do I study the old ways there?
Okay,
That's a long question.
no, no, it's fine. I'm just thinking of how to put the answer best. So, okay, let's start with Christianity. So, I always mention, before Christianity, after Christianity. Yes, they massacred a lot of old traditions. I mean, the Cathedral of Vilnius is built in the old place of the temple of the God of Thunder. It used to be a huge temple. Now we have a cathedral there. So that used to happen. I don't know. Well, usually Lithuanians kind of romanticize our Baltic religion because in Rome, if we read about the old traditions that used to happen in pagan temples, terrible things used to happen there. So I kind of understand why they wanted to remove the temples and build churches in the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah,
After that,
yeah. That
Christianity
makes sense.
also became something, and it's not how it was
Pretty
supposed to
brutal.
happen. So
Right.
that's that. But in Lithuania, well, typically they would say that Baltic people were kind of peaceful originally, and they would only fight when they were threatened. That's kind of the understanding now. If you want to study the old ways, it's difficult to answer just simply because there are people who criticize Romuva because they say that some of the things they use are invented later. And we kind of have no way to know what was the actual old ways because what were the actual old ways and old traditions because there are too little sources about them, and the first sources that we have are written by the enemies, not by the locals. And later, when there are local books, they are already affected by Christianity, and then we might see a hint of criticizing, etc., etc., and we don't know exactly. So we kind of know about these later ways and later rituals and traditions that are already mixed with Christian religion. Of course, we know about actual massacres that happened in Lithuania, and not only and on both sides, pagan people used to kill those missionaries, both Orthodox and Catholic, and well, different types of things. But it's actually complicated, and as you said, we are kind of not against Catholic Church. It's just we have these questions, and they have those questions too, and they quite constantly think about those things because it's difficult. Now there are people who kind of try to seek justice, that our old traditions were, destroyed, and that we had this nice religion and it was destroyed, and that church is just bad, inherently bad. And there are a lot of, well, complicated things about it. And as I said, I personally believe that in the very beginning it was supposed to go differently. But if we try now to kind of make this distinction between this is church and this is something from the old time, we might not have very much luck, because as you see, that some of the old, old after Christianity, let's say, these traditions and customs, they became part of both. So if we just want to be angry at the church, we can, but then we will not be able to look at this big part of Lithuanian history and culture. So that's my point of view, yeah, although I really believe that it would be nice to, know more about these old ways. And it's interesting what's going on here. There are people who even say that the Baltic people use runes as their system of writing, and that there are ways, kind of, although there are kind of no sources about this, but just people think that, and they use these even rituals actually now. And some people say it's pseudo religion, that it's not true. So all this strange thing going on, and maybe after some years we'll have some clarity. But now it's kind of the time of everything is moving. And Romovai is the most well-respected organizations, although there are other less known organizations and clubs. But Romovai is now accepted as the official religion, one of the official religions that are considered a religion, not kind of as, I don't know, a sect or something in Lithuania. And they are criticized by people who are maybe Christian, and they're also criticized by these smaller groups because they are not, I don't know, lighting the fire properly or something. So all this strange thing going on. So if you want to study, well, I'd still say contact someone from Romova. And I actually know some people. I am Facebook friends with people who are, again, they are not priests. I don't know how to call them in English, because there is one someone who could be called a high priest, but she's a woman, so she's like the head of Romua. And then there are these people who can do the rituals, and they are called Vaidilos. So Vaidila and Vaidile, man and woman. And the head is called Krive. Now she's a woman, but it can be, anyway. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know,
Oh,
but
how fascinating.
maybe you can contact some of them, but also you can try and find the written sources and compare them, and different ways
Yeah.
to do it. There are a lot of work by ethnologists you
Hmm.
can look into.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope to go next summer for the language program for either 2 weeks or 4 weeks. I probably speak 200 words, maybe of Lithuanian from my mother and father, but nothing impressive, you
Mhm.
know. So hopefully it will get better, but we'll see. I learned Spanish, so that's my second language because my father said it was important,
Mhm.
so I could learn Lithuanian, I'm sure.
Spanish is like 3 times easier, I'll say, in advance.
Oh, is it? Oh well. Oh well.
Yeah, I mean,
Such
Spanish
is
is
life.
really easy. I mean, if you look at it a little bit, you kind of, maybe you don't spend a lot of
Get it.
time, but that's what I did. I didn't
Right.
spend a lot of time learning it,
Right.
but I can understand the gist of a text. And with Lithuanian,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
it's
Well,
quite a crazy
you know,
language.
yeah, it's a crazy language, but little by little,
Yes, of
little by little,
course. And that's it's really good
and
that
so
you are,
I
trying.
I'm trying. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
have applied for citizenship, actually. I spent the
Okay.
last 5 years with a lawyer in Lithuania and a lawyer and an assistant in who's in France, and my application is actually now in the court over there and being reviewed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taking time because grandma came over around 1910. You know, they were way old. So, yeah, so we'll see what happens. You
That's
know,
good. Congratulations,
but you know, I have all these traditions from my childhood: the poppy seed milk and the Christmas Eve wafers and the wolves howling at the door, all that stuff. And then they didn't teach me to speak, and I'm so mad. I'm so angry. It's like, you know, it was a free foreign language, but
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I
So,
feel that in many cases, people who emigrated, they felt like they needed to help themselves and their children to blend in. And,
yeah,
even if they were like second generation already, they felt like
yeah,
this would like make them separate from the community. And I think it was something related to that. Of course, there was always this practical point that the parents can speak in a language children don't understand. Also,
yeah.
that's that goes into consideration. But I feel that they wanted, to help blend in. That was they were thinking about other things.
In that time frame, that was the important thing, was being a good American
Yes.
and all of that. And now, of course, it's really cool to be ethnic. So here in Florida, we've got a Lithuanian church in St. Petersburg, and all my Lithuanian cousins who don't speak Lithuanian, we all get together and we tell stories about Lithuania, and we just say, "Wow, what a pity we we don't speak." So it's very strange. Very, very strange. Because we're all very pro Lithuania, but it's like, you know, no Quebec, you know? So,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
well, we'll see.
Okay.
It will hopefully
Yeah.
change in time. I'll keep you posted about going to Lithuania next year. So,
Okay. Good.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else wanting to ask something? Teresa, if you are saying
What are you
something,
going
then
to
you
be
are
doing
muted.
for Christmas? Yeah. What are you going to be doing for Christmas? What will be your traditions this year? And is there anything in the community, or is it just the home and
Um, Typically we
or modern
celebrate with
tradition?
family, and we do the 12 dishes thing. As I said, it's quite simple, and maybe we'll do some, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, the fortune telling, future telling games. But it's usually, just at home, uh, with, decorate a tree. And actually, traditionally, people would only decorate the tree on Christmas Eve.
Mm.
And not like now we do it really early, quite often. And then they would decorate it on Christmas Eve and take the decorations off on 6th of January. Are gifts exchanged on Christmas Eve or traditionally? Christmas Eve traditionally. Okay. So, well, as the gift giving it doesn't come from the old tradition. It's kind of a sign of later times. So it can be done different ways. So typically, what people with children would do, and what my parents did, would be that they put the gifts in secret, under the tree, and you find them on Christmas morning. But now, as we are all adults now in the family and no small children yet, so we exchange gifts mostly at night, because we stay up late, and usually we do that. Although my sister was like, maybe let's do it Christmas morning this year, but I don't know how it will happen because you kind of want to give your gifts quicker. So it doesn't have kind of rules. It's just, if there are kids, then you do the whole Santa hoopla. Yeah. Someone else wanted to say something.
I was experimenting with the straw ornaments, and can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Still getting used to my new laptop. Uh, but so I actually found some gold drinking straws and
Hmm.
thought I would try my hand at it. So here's my attempt.
Oh, that's nice.
So so
Yeah,
it's fun. So I actually have some wheat straw, so I will try a more traditional pattern before. But yeah, I've always been interested in doing this, and I finally, after all these years, gotten around to it.
that's good. Thank you for sharing this. Actually, saw these kind of straw gardens made of drinking straws in one school, where the school children did that. But I think you should be able to buy the specific type of straw because sometimes it might be difficult with just simple straw because it needs to be uh, well, you need to prepare it in a specific way because otherwise it might be too breakable, or how to say, and it might be difficult to make them. But there are people who actually prepare the straw in that specific way. And I think someone asked me, is it possible that someone would ship the garden from Lithuania? So I think there are ways, but I think if you want to do it, you can ship the straw because people make these, you know, how should I say it? Like, like a special box with everything that is needed for a straw garden.
Uh,
Can.
I do have some real straw, and you do have to soak it. They say soak it for 4 hours before you use it. So that's
Yeah,
how you
so
make it more pliable.
I honestly I don't know how they prepare it. They do some specific things, yeah, but it's an
I'll
art,
let you know. I'll let you know how it comes out.
Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, any more questions? And if you don't have questions, let me know in the chat if this lecture was useful, if you have heard something new, or something maybe it reminded you of something from your childhood. That might be interesting. Yeah. Okay.
I
Um,
posted a I
yeah.
posted a note and curious about Kalėdų senelis. Is that a more recent? Like you showed the old man that would go from house to house. Is that something that then got picked up based on a Santa Claus from other nations? I don't I'm curious, when did the Kalėdų senelis or Santa Claus become a popular item? Is that something that is from the 20th century?
So basically, this Kaleda, the old man Kaleda, it is actually a very old tradition that they would go and wish good luck, and they would just dress up, maybe sometimes even in not only in the costume of this old man, but also maybe in some animals, etc. So there was this thing with dressing up from the very old times. They say that this Kaleda old man, he would bring maybe some nuts or apples to children and maybe play some Christmas games with them. But I think that it kind of got again, it's a compilation, and what we have with this gift giving and Santa Claus, this already came from Western culture. So it kind of it's just melted into one now. Yeah. Although I think that this Santa Claus myth is it's common for all the world, and maybe if we would look into it and research different cultures, we see some similar notions, and Kaleda is one of them. but later, it's adapted, and we have something more like Santa Claus now. So now only some people might visit Kalėda, but well, the typical understanding is very traditionally in the Western world Santa Claus. And we call that man Kalėdų senelis, but it's not from the old tradition, it's from this modern tradition. Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking that if there are no more questions, then we're going to be finishing. So if anyone wants to share, if you found this useful, you can either, write here in the chat or say something, or you can email me so that I know, which direction to go with. As I said, I have planned some activity for January to March already, because, well, some people were kind of pushing and said that when is there going to be a second level course, etc. So I updated them. Actually, they are now put into categories differently than this year. So yeah, and of course there will be on occasion the Zoom meetings on different topics and etc. As always. So if you want, to continue being in the community and talking to people, because now, we kind of get together, although you don't talk directly to each other, although I from time to time I see that people exchange their contact info. So that's nice, but still we kind of, see each other. So that's good. And yeah, and as I said, I'll try and post hopefully today the list of fortune telling games so that you can have it, Of course, it will not include everything because it's impossible. It's completely impossible, but I'll try to put some. Okay. So I will say Merry Christmas, and I'll see you next year. That sounds strange to say, but really, I'll see you next year, and I hope that your holidays will be filled with light and joy, and maybe some Lithuanian spirit, you know. So have a nice day.
Very good.
Okay, Merry
Thanks for doing
Christmas.
this.
Thank you. Christmas.
Thank you. Bye-bye.